So this is the horn ring and steering wheel for the 54 Chevy that we have. I know it's starting with a little bit of a zoomed in view, but I wanted to make sure you could see what was going on here. When I first bought the car, the horn did not work, and the steering wheel is a bit out of alignment. So I wanted to fix those, more so for the horn, just so for a safety issue. The ring and everything was here, but it was electrical tape all around it, and it was kind of like dangling in here. So I just wanted to show you what you can do if you need to fix the horn in your car. If it's 40s, 50s car, whatever. These are all about the same, and they're very simplistic, just like everything else on the cars. There's not a whole lot to it. You have power coming from either the battery or the fuse panel up into the horn itself, and then or into this area, into the column, and then you have a wire coming from here down to a relay up usually on one of the inner fenders or the firewall, and then from the relay up to the horn itself. And then you also have power going to the relay. I'll explain the relay and the horn setup in the front after we take a look at this. Essentially, the power is coming into the horn mechanism on the steering wheel, acting as the switch to then power the relay, and then the relay, once powered, powers or once switched on, powers the horn. So in this case, we had a couple issues. One was, again, the horn ring itself wasn't connected properly, and then on top of that we had a bad relay, and on top of that the horn needed adjustment, which I had no idea before I did this. Even I've worked on a ton of these cars, or older cars, I had no idea there was an adjustment on a horn. So that was a little bit of a learning experience. So anyway, if you need to take yours apart, it's really easy. Typically you're going to have this center cap in the middle of the horn ring. It's typically like a plastic cap, and it's usually held in with like a spring clip. So if you get a small flathead screwdriver, be careful. I mean, you just work your way around it. It'll pop out, and then once it's out, you can see in this one there's just 3 screws. So I'm going to take those screws out, and I'll show you what's below it. It's usually just a spacer, and then the contact ring, and then a spring to keep everything off. The horn is hooked up, so as I take this out, it's going to make contact. You'll hear a little bit of noise. It'll only be a couple of seconds, but I'm going to go ahead and just take these 3 screws out. Be careful, because typically there's washers on the back side of these screws, so as you're taking them out, you want to hold those in place, or don't want to drop them. A lot of these washers for these horn rings are not just like your standard metal washer. A lot of times they're plastic, and they might be form-fitted. Actually, yeah, you can see this one right here, so that it actually fits down in one of the grooves, one of the holes in here. So I got 2 of the 3 out. I'm going to just hold this in place so it doesn't fall on me. We'll take this one out. Okay. And that one is out. And there's the horn ring itself. That's off. Now you can see right below it. See, it started to come out already. There's this spacer, and then if I take the spacer out, here's the contact ring. And if I take the contact ring out, it's just a little metal ring. Right below that, you have your spring with your contact button. Once all of these go together, and then you press on the horn, it makes contact on that. That's what acts as your switch to send power up to the relay, that then sends power up to the horn. And that's what makes the horn work. Again, really, really easy. In this case, someone just didn't have this all tightened down properly and didn't have the spring in the right spot. So I took it apart, just put everything back in, tightened it up. It all worked fine. Well, worked fine after I replaced the relay and adjusted the horn. Now, the other issue, like I said, was the steering wheel itself was a little bit out of center. So in order to adjust that, it's, again, really simple. 3/4 inch socket right on this nut right here. Literally put it on, loosen this thing all the way up, take the nut off. I think there was a spacer behind it too. Once that's out, you can grab both sides of the steering wheel and just wiggle it a little bit as you're pulling it off, and it'll pop right off. It's splined. So you take that off, and then whichever way you need to rotate it, just turn it that way, slide it back on again, wiggle it in place, put that nut back on, tighten it up, and you're good to go. So it's, again, as simple as that, just to get your steering wheel straight and looking in alignment, and to get the horn button itself, or the horn ring itself, working. So what we'll do in a second, we'll go up into the engine compartment, we'll take a look at that horn relay and the adjustment on the horn, and I'll explain those 2 things, and then you guys will be done. You'll know everything you need to know about fixing the horn or adjusting the steering wheel on your 40s, 50s, maybe even into the early 60s cars. Here's the relay that I was talking about. It is mounted on the inner fender. This is a 3-terminal relay. Some have 4, but that's a topic for another discussion. So for this one, it's very straightforward. This center one, you can see this thicker conductor with the red coating is the power coming into the relay. That's the power coming from, in this case, just the battery, straight from the battery. The output for the relay is this upper connector here, this lower one, I guess, depending on how you're looking at this. This goes to the, or would be the power source going up to the horn. It could be a power source going to anything else. It could be like a fuel pump or an electric fan on the radiator or anything like that. And then the other terminal here is the incoming switched feed, in this case from the horn button or the horn ring. Again, if you were using a relay for something else like a fuel pump or whatever else, you might just have a toggle switch up in the dash. And the whole point of the relay is to allow you to take a lower amperage circuit up into the dash area. So whether it's going up into the steering column for the horn, or if it's just going to a toggle switch in the dash, that way it's a lower amperage circuit going up there. You flip that switch, that then sends power down into the relay, and then it triggers the internal switch in the relay, which essentially just makes the connection between your hot and your outgoing connector here, and then that feeds your higher amperage device. So obviously you could see the cables on here are much different size and diameter because it's a different amperage draw. So you have the relay placed closer to the higher amperage draw device, and you have your larger cable and your larger amperage draw going directly into the relay and out of the relay, and then you just use the lower amperage circuit for your switch to activate the relay itself. You can also have, and you'll see that on a lot of applications, you'll see relays that have an internal fuse. This one doesn't have it. Some of the 4-terminal ones have it, or you could put an inline fuse. So you could just put an inline fuse on either one of these connections here, either the incoming or the outgoing, and then you could fuse it that way if you'd like. That's pretty common for a lot of these older vehicles that were set up in this scenario. So that's it. So you have your feed coming in from the horn here, from the horn ring. That triggers the internal switch. Then you send power from this terminal over to this terminal, and then that feeds the horn itself. So I'll go up here. Here's the original style horn, actually the original horn that was in the car. So the power comes into it. The horn itself is just grounded right to the body. So once that relay is triggered and sends power up to here, the horn is activated because it just makes the final connection right here. So that's how that works. In this particular case, like I had said earlier, I had power going up into the steering column and to the horn button itself, or the horn ring itself, and then from there I had it coming down to, I had power at the relay, but I didn't have power coming out of the relay. So I switched the relay out. So at that point I had power going into the relay, out of the relay, and down into the horn, but the horn still wasn't working. So this is the tricky part, because again, I didn't even know it was here. If you look on the back side of the horn, you'll notice this little knob in the back. So this didn't turn at all. I hit it with a little bit of fluid film, let it set, and then was able to turn it. I don't remember if I turned it clockwise or counterclockwise, but I turned it in small increments, and then all of a sudden you could hear the horn just slowly start to work. So it made like a little bit of a noise and kind of a vibration, and then I kept adjusting it, and eventually the horn just worked, and that was it. So sorry, I don't know what the technical details are for that little control in the back, or that little knob in the back. I don't know if it adjusts something internally as far as like a vacuum, or if it's something electronic or what it is. I don't think it is electronic, but whatever it does, it's an adjustment, and that's what made the horn work. So test your power first, obviously. Make sure you have power going up into the steering column, up to your horn button or your horn ring. Make sure it's coming out. You have power coming down to your relay, power coming out of the relay once the horn is activated, and then make sure you have power obviously coming all the way down to the horn. And then again, if the horn doesn't work, try that little adjustment if you have one in the back. So that was it. Horn's working. Hope this helps you guys figure out any horn problems or steering wheel adjustment issues you need on your car. And if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to us. Thanks for watching.